Before you share that screen, can you go back to just the Zoom in? Hi. That's yeah. Is it in the screen share right now? I was trying to start that, but trying to get that ready. Cool. That good? All good, and then just, yep, the PowerPoint. Oh. Delightful. And I'm gonna make sure on my hand out at the desk that I can jump in. Then you should be able to operate the keys on here. Cool. So the space bar plays it, right?
What's
No,
up,
you-
Joe?
you-
I didn't know you were doing it live here, dude.
Yeah, I know.
Fucking game.
That's why I texted you.
I don't have.
All right.
It's the front back arrows.
Okay, great, thank you.
Morning, Joe.
Good morning, how are you?
Good.
It starts at 10, right?
Yep. Okay.
Hello? Hello? Yeah. Oh, okay. 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 Where we're at. Okay. All right. Good enough. See you later. Bye. Oh, come on. All set.
Yeah, it's all set up. Fancy.
I forgot the book. I'm hoping that we don't have to have the book with the shift book. Oh, yeah. Mhm. Here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Nice to meet you.
Me too.
Everyone's gonna be deep for sure.
Okay.
That's easier.
Are you in here a lot? The office? Are you?
Yeah, I'm there a fair amount. I'm there again, that's all.
Yeah.
How about you?
No, I think this is my third time.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, how long have you been doing?
This is my second year.
Second year.
Project.
I just became licensed like a couple months ago. Yeah, so still brand new. No clients yet.
Gotcha. But you came in at a different time, like, we're doing shift thing, right?
Yes.
I like the second year is trying to do more than the first, but yeah, trying to keep up with the first year.
Right. Was it good the first year?
Yeah, it was.
Because that's
For
when
sure.
I
Yeah.
think it was going to be.
Right now, I got like a listing that's been sitting for months now. I can get it sold, save my life.
Really? Where's that one?
Whenever.
Where's- Is that New York?
Yeah, it's New York City.
Oh, it
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I should probably learn streaming. I looked here my whole life and I still couldn't tell you. Gotta use my GPS sometimes.
check. I'm getting around the city, and outside the city, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, for me, it's, I know every street there is,
Do you? Oh,
Yeah.
that's good.
I mean, I can't tell you how to get there, but I can tell you, if you tell me the name, I can tell you where to go.
Oh,
You're on, right? Can you speak and then see, I can see if I can hear you. Nothing. I didn't turn the audio.
Can I like change that setting? Maybe I missed something when I set up Zoom for this, because. For like, so other people can join and talk to.
Well, if you, did you unmute?
Yeah, I muted everything and I can hear you in here.
But I can't, yeah.
Oh, the legend himself, Joe, what's going on? Morning, man. Fire energy, that's how I am, man, every day.
Let's try this.
Oh, you guys, oh, no, there's a lot of
Check,
people
check,
that
check.
come in.
Oh, is there?
They were just literally parking when I
Can you
got
hear
here.
me in the room?
Yeah, I can. Yes, I can hear you.
What's up, dog? What's going on? You ready?
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Who's in the back?
Cool kid sitting back.
I mean, the blind ones sit in the front.
That's me, Tina, I can't see for shit.
Sweet.
Do you wear glasses?
Yeah, at night, I
Yeah.
have it in my car.
You guys can hear my audio?
We can't drive at all.
Morning.
Good morning.
I'm surprised it wasn't red all the way up here, when it was raining.
Oh, yeah.
Every time I drive. it
Oh, that's all right. You know, I'm a front row girl with you.
Well, there's no
I have no
traffic,
paper.
30.
No papers.
No, it's all green.
Prepare for this. I'm
Show up.
for you.
Or listening to? Is there enough room for all of us?
I don't know if they're watching it in the room, or if they're coming in, I don't know.
Well, I'm gonna sit here then. Is this Bob?
So I put that post online last night and I think we're gonna end up with like a lot of people online. I'm very interested to see what happens.
That's Dylan's right there, 874.
Cash or convention?
I was at team meeting yesterday. Good morning, Megan.
Looks good.
Austin. When I saw it's not going.
Megan, just checking, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Sorry, I'm sitting at the DMV, so I gotta stay quiet.
Delightful, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
Yeah. sure, bathroom.
Did you get Abby?
Oh, yeah, Abby, there she is.
I'm here.
I'll check periodically
Is it hot?
for whoever joins.
Take off my sweater.
I just said that you're.
I might, well, even if I wasn't.
You'd be hot.
I'm always freezing,
Yeah.
especially in here.
Yeah, it's always really cold in here.
It's warm. Joe just said it's warm.
No,
for the
it's not.
record.
He's also wearing like a heavy jacket. Yeah. And he's a guy. The
Yeah.
temperatures are so different than ours.
I beg to differ, now play.
Going on.
Greg,
Oh, man,
how you been?
good. Do we have a bed sheet hanging on our wall?
Mike made that.
It looks very,
I'm very proud of that.
fraternity like.
It does, that's.
Yeah.
Yes.
What is the watch party?
That was for the,
Oh, that's probably while we were in Dallas because Mega Camp was going on in
in
Houston.
Austin, yeah,
Or was it Austin?
yeah. That's what it was for. It wasn't much of a watch party. Like one or two of us here.
Oh. Where is it from? Are they just?
I don't know
going
if they're coming or not. They might be watching it.
I also like sleep with my windows open when it's 50 degrees out and all that. Or even if it was 30 degrees. I just-
Not Airbnbs.
I'm afraid that someone's gonna
No,
come get
actually,
me
no,
if I
actually,
leave my
don't
windows
do it.
open. I
I
live
want
in
a second
the
what?
woods,
Black.
We don't-
Well, I've seen, yeah.
Yeah.
Working with them?
so like, I'm.
I
always
wouldn't get
scared.
vibes on the first floor.
And, Yeah, there's no neighbors.
And in
so
my
it's
last
just
house,
like-
I was
Yeah.
like a weird house, so like even my living room wasn't, I get a little peeked out with my living room, especially if my husband's gone in there.
Are you in a neighborhood?
Yeah, and we got lots of sticky fingers in our neighborhood.
Right.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, like at least twice a week.
I don't know,
Oh, it happens every day.
if I buy them,
Where are you at?
it's really fine. Scandal.
I mean, if you live in a neighborhood, it happens all the time. I'm telling you right now.
I'm on that
Married to a
neighborhood
police
watch
officer.
because of my rent and like.
Really?
Oh, yeah, you see people all the time. They just check to see if it's
I
open.
don't know.
See,
but-
If it's open, they'll let themselves in and see if there's anything in your car. Oh, yeah, breakfast calls every shift. People are always out there.
Who is he with?
Brand, right?
Airbnbs have something like also.
So yeah, any neighborhood, they can just get out and walk around.
Against
They'll
that.
check all your car doors.
You're in Red Line, right?
What do I
I'm
do?
in Central. I'm right over by the high school.
And when you only-
I used to
What?
live in Red Line, so you're not.
Oh, okay. I don't know where I got that.
First time job.
You know, I'm talking
Maybe
about-
less Tina knows the better.
Yeah.
Tina, where are you at?
Really
Yeah, I live in my own little bubble.
Lock your door.
Yeah.
Try to break into
Where's
things,
that
but if it's open, they'll check.
I didn't lock my house ever until like a month ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Just left it
Just
open.
be, yeah,
Yeah.
I wanna trust people, but like,
I'm allowed.
but you don't have like sidewalks and stuff in your neighborhood, do you?
Cabin and stuff
Yeah,
like
they
that.
hit more like
But you have to still be.
just easy schmeezy in neighborhoods that you walk
Something
back.
like that
there.
would-
Oh, you
I
see
know
it?
the cars. I hear that a
I
lot.
have a horrible, terrible story in my house.
Yeah, right.
Invasion.
Yeah, we won't talk about it.
We'll wait till after.
That's what I want. Yeah, that's how I want. I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I pulled my, you're on a response to me, I want.
Right.
That's scary. That's very scary.
My
When
husband's
when
told
little kid, when
told
kids
his-
come into it though, I.
done on our dog, our previous dog, because he thought it was.
All right, so it is 10:01. So what are those called? 10:01, and we're gonna get started. So I'm gonna introduce myself, which is, it's crazy to think I have to do that, but I definitely have to do that. So I'm Joe, Joe Cipollini. So I'm actually Ryan's long lost business partner. That's why he can always do some crap without any ramifications. We've been business partners for almost 17 years. And I have a little bit of a backstory. I'm going to share it because we're talking about shift. And there's like very few of us survivors of multiple shifts. And so I got into real estate in December of 2007. My first job in real estate was those like bandit signs next to the road. I was like the guy hammering them in. That was my glamorous real estate job. And then I was getting Eric Brewer his coffee. December of 2007. In early 2008, so I was there for about 60 days and everybody quit. Investment world, it can be a little bit brutal and some turnover and boom, everybody's gone, right? So I come in on a Friday at like lunchtime, I've been out doing my job. And I come back in and everybody's in the conference room and they're quitting. And I sold my first house the next day. And now it's early 2008, and by May of 2008, the market is on a trajectory that looks something like that, okay? And what I didn't know at the time, didn't appreciate at the time, was that I was learning the things that this book is going to talk about in trial by fire. And it made me really, honestly, super appreciate when the market turned and got better, because I was like, I didn't know it could be like this. You mean mortgage companies don't go out of business 2 days before closing, which happened, by the way, and loan requirements were changing, people's credit scores, like they could get approved, underwritten, and be ready to close, and the mortgage insurance company wouldn't insure the mortgage, and the whole deal would die a week before closing, right? And so when we talk about like later in the book, when we talk about bulletproofing your transaction, and we talk about in the beginning of the book, we talk about the mindset that's required for a shift. We need a mindset change in this room because we've come out of a really great market and we have to unlearn some crappy habits that we've gotten over that time. And if you're new to the business, you have an advantage because you're only going to know what you know now, and that's going to be good. But for some of us, even me, right? It's been a little easy. Right. And I put the post on my Facebook page that I was teaching a class and people were like, yeah, and their hands are up. We have people that are going to be in the audience that are not necessarily specifically practicing real estate agents. They might be real estate investors. The shift is going to look different for them. We have people who are not even in real estate, but to be honest with you, the first 3 chapters of this book, they could be completely agnostic of whatever industry you're in. In fact, I would argue that this book is the recipe for success in any shifting market, in any industry. If you took all the words about real estate out and just changed them to whatever your widget is that you sell, it could work. So, so we're going to have a really cool conversation about that, but I wanted to share my story. So you understood, so 2008 to 2007, downward crash. We thought we were coming back, 2010, we didn't come back, right? And then we've seen generally rising market conditions for the last few years. And then COVID came along. And I don't know if anybody remembers, but I was running like a COVID shift survivors group online. Like we were doing it every Tuesday and Thursday. And it was like, we didn't know, like we knew there was something because there was 0 chance that there were not going to be any ramifications from COVID, but we didn't even know what they would be. It was unprecedented. And so there was a little bit of a shift with that. And now we're seeing some macroeconomic changes that are going to force change on real estate. And there is going to be, there are already some shifting indicators, some shifting realities, and there's going to be more. So this is the best time to be having this conversation. I don't think there's really a bad time. I think honestly, we probably could have had this conversation as the market was going up to tell you it wasn't going to stay up. But we all were enjoying running around, trying to get multiple offers in, all the things, right? It was like, we were so busy, we didn't even get to think about it. And that's not gonna work anymore. So we're gonna, what I'm doing with this, there are a couple of approaches to the shift curriculum. There's like a true shift book club. There's a shift class. There's a shift class series. And I'm kind of meeting it in the middle. I'm gonna break it into 4 weeks. And it's gonna look. Does that work?
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Cool. Let me try again. I don't know what is gonna happen. No, Dave. It's cool. The next slide is not cool, but it's just setting the expectations for the class. So I'm gonna tell you what the structure of the class is gonna look like, and then the content will be on the next slide. Space bar.
Let's be real, you're just being.
No, it's the arrow up, arrow down.
I can do this.
Even if you click it.
We'll do that. Now, all right, now I'm good. I'm good, false alarm, it's me. So we're gonna break it into 4 2-hour classes. My intentions are this. I have not jam-packed 2 hours worth of content into my work. I've put enough content for us to have really good dialogue between the slides. I definitely don't want it to be a one-sided class, a one-sided conversation. But we're gonna break it out into these topics. I didn't ask Ryan's permission. This is the benefit of when he gives me crap, I get to do whatever I want to do. I got all the shift books out of the storage closet. So if you don't have a copy, there's that. We'll have an order put in, and I'm sure they'll be in within the week if there's not more lurking around somewhere. But these are gonna be the topics. So we're gonna start today with really like, what is a shift and how do we even know? What do you look for? Like, if you don't know what you don't know, then just start to study the market. And if you do know what you knew before, you have to study the market now and figure out what you need to unlearn from the old market and learn now to thrive in this market. It's going to be, today is going to be a lot about the thinking process behind succeeding in this time. Like, I'm going to get very real with you. When I said that there aren't a lot of survivors of multiple shifts, and I was like, it's like real, okay? So the industry already has an 80% failure rate for real estate agents. For real estate investors, the swing is even bigger because the risk reward trade-offs are huge, right? Like, if you think about that from a real estate investment perspective, is that every deal that they make on a flip or a wholesale deal or whatever, like they might be making 20 or 30 grand. So if you're banking on 3 deals for $60,000 worth of revenue and you lose 2 of those 3, that's a huge hit, right? So count your blessings that the margins are smaller on the agency side, but also that comes with lower upside, okay? Or at least more work for the upside. So today's gonna be a lot about the mindset of acknowledging what's going on with the shift, what to measure, how to attach actions to what you're measuring. Like, I will rewind back to my biography in a second about what I'm currently doing, but one of the dangers is that we measure, can I swear?
Yeah.
We measure shit just to measure it. Like, it's dumb, okay? And what I want you can write this down. If I'm measuring something, I need to know what the action is that is attached to the measurement. Okay? Like, if you see indications in the market of numbers that you don't like, what's the action you can take that's relevant to that number you're measuring? And we're going to talk about some numbers in your business that you should be measuring, and also identifying there's a key performance indicator and a key performance activity. And every indicator should lead to an activity that you can control. Otherwise, you are on a roller coaster and you are the passenger. Okay? Like, we're not here to be passengers, because if you are, then whatever the market delivers to you, whatever life's circumstances deliver to you, will be the outcome that you get. And that's a pretty crappy place to be. Week 2, I put homework on there. I didn't do homework in school, so I'm not going to hold anybody accountable. I'm not going to check books, but we're going to next week, we're gonna go through tactic 5. So really, like, nobody did prep reading for today, right? So I'm not gonna hold you, like, I'm gonna give a presentation today that doesn't matter if you read the book or not. You'll want to read it, but you didn't have to. But next week is definitely through tactic 5. We're gonna leave off today roundabout at the end of tactic 3, which is about finances. Tactic 4 and tactic 5 are lead generation and lead conversion. You're gonna hear me talk today about the mindset that's required to embrace that lead generation and lead conversion, no matter what you are in, what your business is, are the only 2 things you need to be focusing on right now, because those will insulate your business against whatever's coming. So we're gonna talk about that next week. After that, we're gonna go in from 5 to 9, it's a bigger jump. The tactics there are a little bit smaller. And it's really like, what's your competitive edge? It's gonna be talking a little bit more in particular about like kind of refining your value proposition of your business, refining like what your business structure needs to look like for this period. And then on the back end, 9 through 12 at the very end is going to be about thriving and mastering the market. So like to give you tactic 12, it's bulletproofing the transactions, issues and solutions, which is really about like mastering a harder market. Does that make sense? Okay. So what I said, I was going to rewind it to my biography. So where have I been? Why is Ryan always like talking smack on that I'm not here? So because I'm not here, it's true, especially since the move. So I took a position as the chief sales officer over at Integrity Personal Products. And that's relevant because I stepped into that role with the background of retail conventional real estate. And I had cut my teeth, remember hammering signs for Eric way back in the day. So I knew investment, but everything that we've been doing at that company for the last year has been to prepare for this market that's coming. And Eric and I got into a conversation over a year ago about me making that move over there. If you want to think of me, so as the chief sales officer, my responsibility is everything related to revenue generation. So I'm responsible for making sure there's enough leads, making sure we're converting them, making sure we have a scalable and repeatable sales process, and that we're maximizing our revenue on the back end. It's a pretty hefty lift. And I'm basically responsible for all of the components of the business that are not operations and transaction coordination. Okay. So think of me like a really big rainmaker for a real estate team. Okay. That's really like how it feels there. And to put that in perspective, market shifting down, last month we set 175 appointments, which is a record. So we've been building systems, we've been putting these things in place. So just to close the gap on my biography, like started in investment, very like peon, right? Built the retail real estate business with Ryan. We built our real estate team. It was this, buysellpa.com, right? So I was in retail real estate for an extended period of time. And then that's where I've been. So I'm still in York. I actually moved into the neighborhood right here, just FYI. Like I drive by this building every day. So I'm not far away, I promise. But that's where I've been in day to day. And so that brings a really cool perspective and that's actually why, right, through some of my relationships, why there's investment and retail real estate on this call, because everybody needs to be paying attention to the shift. The conversations on that side of the world, on that side of the business, in terms of these investors, are like very similar. Think about how many of them may have gotten into the business as the market was going up. The market was doing all the heavy lifting, right? Oh, I can make a spread on a deal without doing anything because the market's appreciating so fast. That's gone. Not only is it gone, it's gone at a massive scale. 49% of open doors deals were losses last month. We're talking billions of dollars worth of capital changing hands at this time. So it's just really critical that we be having this conversation and we get real about it. So how do you know things are shifting? This is a question for you. I want to know what you would look at. What are the signs and what are the numbers that would tell you that it's a shifting market?
Days on market.
Days on market. Or planning on my part. Can anybody take notes of these? Like, I'd like to get the list of all these things. Because what we're going to do today is we're gonna come back at the end, we're gonna shut down the virtual room, we're gonna come back at the end and we're gonna look and write locally at these numbers, okay? So days on market,
Number of offers you're receiving.
number of offers you're receiving. Who thought that would be a number we need to measure?
Price reductions?
Price reductions,
Interest rates,
New listings.
new listings, what was your
interest rates.
interest rates,
Seller
seller assist. Which-
Inspections?
Seller assist was not happening in
Price reductions.
2021. What?
Price reductions.
Price reduction?
Could you
Back
even
to market.
measure like the type of loans being accepted? or
Absolutely,
government loans?
100% that is a measurable thing. In fact, did you know that the proportion of federally backed mortgages is essentially in opposite proportion to the health of the market? Number of back on markets, I think that was Richie, and if it was, I'm proud of it. Yeah, back on markets,
Expired.
expires.
Just to note that Pittsburgh is doing a Wednesday, or excuse me, Monday morning, 11 o'clock review of all these numbers, if anybody wants to join us.
Yes. Yeah, so at the Pittsburgh Market Center, we've put in place Market Monday. Here's deal talk, right? Like, we as leaders are having that conversation that we need to have more of a pulse on the market. And I'm gonna challenge everybody when we leave today that I appreciate the attendance. I appreciate, we have 20 people online. I appreciate that. But like, you have got to take personal ownership if you expect to do really well. And I'm gonna challenge everybody when we leave to change one daily behavior that puts you more in touch and in relationship with the numbers of the market. One of the things that Ryan and I did very, very consistently was one thing, we went to the office every day. It sounds small, but it makes a really big difference because it's hard to disconnect from the market when you're there with it every day. And the other thing that we did all the time was every single morning, we looked at a couple of things. We looked at new, pended, and price drop every day. And then back on markets as well. So some of the numbers that you're saying, some of the things you're gonna measure, some of the things you're gonna look at, are you paying attention to them? Because if you watch through the market, what would be, so this is a little bit of a quiz. What's the number of all of the things that were said, what's the thing that you're going to see first?
Price drop.
No.
Days on
Yes,
market.
but simultaneously another one.
Days
Days
on
on
market.
market,
No,
less showings.
nope,
Less listed.
no. Yes, all of these, yes, not first. What's first? What's the early one?
Interest rates.
Back on market. Because as the consumer confidence changes, you have those immediate like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Their affordability is changing. Interest rate, right? So like all the things you're describing are there, but you're gonna see back on markets earlier than you're gonna necessarily see days on market rise. Days on market takes a long time, not a super long time, but it takes weeks to months to change at a macro scale. But back on market is an emotional answer. There is something that happened that they don't want to move forward with the deal anymore. But in 2021, how many back on markets were there?
Not many.
Not many. Why?
Because you just showed up at the settlement table.
That's
You didn't
right.
Do
You-
anything.
Because you didn't have a choice. If you wanted to buy a home, you were in and all the way, right? It was like done. But now consumer confidence is changing. So paying attention to some of these indicators and really like, okay, what's going on? So I told you, like, you're gonna measure the KPI, you're gonna measure the indicator, but what's the thing behind that? What is the story that that's telling? So, are there any other numbers we should be tracking? What are the numbers you should be tracking in your business?
Where the leads are coming from, what
Leads.
sources, whether it's through face-to-face, social media, or organic.
So I'm gonna break that down into two. You're gonna count lead count and lead source. What else? Starts with P. Rhymes with pipeline.
Pipeline.
Yeah. So your pipeline, which is your future business, your pipeline is a direct indicator of your future revenue. Okay, so if you are keeping an eye on the health of your pipeline, when people start to get cold feet, how many people saw that consumer reactions in 2021, right? They were like, this is awful, I don't want to participate. And then the market that they didn't want to participate in got so terrible that now they also still don't want to participate, right? So your pipeline is a very, very important indicator for you of the health of your future revenue. So paying attention to that, and we'll talk about what a pipeline looks like when we get to next week. Anything else? For you,
Conversion rate.
conversion rate, absolutely. How do you pay your bills?
Money.
Okay, does anybody track their GCI for their revenue? Okay, so paying attention to those, right? So there's lead indicators and lag indicators, that's gonna be a lag. All the other things we've been talking about are lead. Closings, right? Some of these basics. So in the book, Gary talks about a couple of things. First of all, there's the big three. Now, I have a big three on there of us, but there's another big three. There's three types of markets. There's the buyer's market, there's a seller's market, and there's a balanced market. Can anybody give any shot of a definition of what a balanced market looks like? But yeah,
So I actually just did a video on this yesterday and I got it from Keeping Current Matters. So NAR says a balanced market is if there's enough homes on the market to last a 6 months buyer demand.
Yep.
Anything less than that is a seller's market. Anything more than that is a buyer's market.
yep. So the book says from 5 to 7 months of inventory. So exactly what you just said, right? When was the last time we had 6 months of inventory?
Like 2018.
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah, yeah. It's been years since we've had a balanced market, which means how many new members to NAR real estate or to or coming into the real estate industry in general, the investors and all that, how many new people have come in every year? Just a shot. You might actually have some type of indication.
Tens of thousands.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands.
I was gonna say like 250.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So each of those years, those people were looking at a market that was unbalanced. We all got addicted to unbalanced. Right? So when we talk about the mindset shift that needs to happen, which is very, very hardly put into the beginning of this book, that's what we're talking about. We've gotten used to the easy, like the unbalanced, and unbalanced for us is okay, right? It means the market's moving quick. It means we have plenty of opportunities for transactions. It means you can put something together in 35 days, right? So on that multiple shift journey that Ryan and I were on, we often laugh, which we shouldn't, it's kind of like not healthy. We laugh about how like it used to be that 6 weeks on the market was quick,
Super quick.
right? And we're gonna talk, again, we're gonna talk later, because if you go back, so time out here. So if you go back to this. Your competitive edge must change. If you were a great agent because you could get your people in the door super fast and beat multiple offers, that skill set will probably be sunsetting. And you're going to need to be paying attention to the skill set that's going to work differently for the new market. Those are the types of things we're going to talk about here. But the big three of those markets, buyer's market is more than 7 months of inventory. Balanced market, like Jeremy was saying, is around 6 months of inventory, and a seller's market is less than 5 months. Okay.
Last year, we've been at less than 30 days, hasn't it been?
Yeah. What was the average days on
Which was
market?
Why it's,
Right.
3 or 5?
yeah, like 30.
5.
What, 5 days?
Yeah.
5 days. 5 days, and an actual seller's market is anything less than 5 months. We have a huge amount of runway to go and still be in a seller's market, and we are gonna feel so crappy about that. Because it's gonna be 3 months, and we're gonna be like, oh my God, it's not 5 days anymore. And the market would still tell us it's still like a fairly healthy seller's market.
When I first got in the business, I was on a team and we were a very big, heavy hitting team and I was new to real estate. And one of the things they told me to say, like, first thing out of my mouth after my name was, our team's days on market is 57 days. Because everybody else's in York and Adams County was like 85 to 90 days. They were like typically right around 3-ish months, maybe a little more than 3 months. And we were, slicing and dicing at 57 days, which was, a third less time.
Yep.
But now to tell somebody 57 days makes you sound like you're a wuss and a loser.
I'm gonna
you know?
talk,
But that's the difference, because that's why we take a 180-day listing, is because sometimes you have to go back and renew those listings for another 180 days.
Yeah.
When you have a house on the market and then you go back for the third time to try to see if you can get an extension, then, that's when you're in some serious stuff.
we're
No.
gonna come back to this in the finance section. But think about what happens to your cash flow. So I'm speaking directly to the investors, but also to you guys, because your income flows with your business. But think about the cash flow change of a market that goes from a 5-day on market to a 50-day on market, and how long your cash cycle as a human being needs to change. You could count on a paycheck, right? And if you were counting on your deal, hey, I'm gonna take a listing, I'll be at the closing table in October, no problem, right? That may not be true anymore. It will eventually be definitely not true, right? We're going to see an average days on market that goes up. And we have another factor in this shift, which is the lack of inventory. So again, it kind of goes back to COVID. We knew a shift was coming, we just didn't know how it would look. We know for sure a shift is here, and we're just not 100% sure how it's going to look because of one kind of component that's in there, and that's why NAR and Keeping Current Matters and Inman, they all have these like opinion pieces that are slightly different, but it's like, how exactly is that going to play out? But you cannot tell me that we're going to go from 2021 with interest rates at 2.8% to 2022 with interest rates at 6.25% and not see a concrete real life change to our business. Okay, so the 3 types of markets, but here's the 3 types of people. So the 3 types of people, I'm going to read directly from page 24, which is actually, we've finally gotten to tactic 1 of the book. But he says, there are 3 types of people who emerge when a market shifts. First, those that fearfully predict the worst and are unnecessarily pessimistic. That's number 1. There are those who hopefully wish for the best, believe they can't fail, and are unrealistically positive. That's number 2. And then there's number 3, the third. Those who respect the fact that they might fail. They actively prepare for the worst and they strive for the best. Now, anybody who knows me really well knows I'm a super big book nerd. I just finished reading Great by Choice by Jim Collins. And in that book, he talks about something called the 20-mile march. And it's totally unrelated to shift, but I want to share with you the concept. So in the book, they studied the 2 people who were essentially on a race to the poles, to the South Pole. And there were two very distinct camps here. There was one guy that both had names I can't pronounce, so I'm not going to try. So we're just going to say guy number 1, right? Guy number 1 was hard charger. We're going to go. It's a great day outside. We're going to go 60 miles. We're going to go as fast as we can. We're going to carry as light of a pack as we can. We're going to get there fast and get back fast. And then there was guy number 2, who in preparation for his trek, practiced by eating raw dolphin meat. He marched, he walked, hiked everywhere, regardless of the weather. He was a little paranoid. He was a little like, if this goes wrong, or if we don't make it quite to our next drop point for our materials, I want to make sure we have enough extra, right? And he really embraced the concept that I'm going to challenge you guys. First of all, read the book. Second of all, because the book is about companies that 10x in times of hardship. And if you want to 10x your business in a time of hardship, that's a great book to read.
And what's it called again?
It's called Great by Choice by Jim Collins. But the second guy embraced the concept of the 20-mile march. Okay. So that slight realism, right? It's not paranoia. They call it productive. In the book, he calls it productive paranoia. And I think there's a difference, right? There's the first person who's like, I'm terrified, I'm shutting down, I need to go get a real job in our business, right? We're all giggling, right? there's the hopeful optimist, and they might not be in this room. Right? But productive paranoia is the third person, and I rephrase it as the resourceful realist. And in the book, by the way, the first guy, he died and everybody else died. Not just in the book, in real life, they all died. Okay, just to be super clear. But the second guy, they made it. So the first guy made it down, but they died on the way back. And he made it down and he was late. He got there, and in his journal, which they found, it was like, oh, bummer. They've already been there. And the guy who was marching 20 miles, whether it was great weather, snowy weather, rainy weather, whatever, they made it because they were consistent, they were realistic, they had very, very conservative drop points for their materials, and they carried more than they needed, right? The one guy carried one compass. Ruh-roh, if that goes wrong, right? The other guy had like 3, right? So you got to carry 3, you have to be prepared, but it requires a discipline to that. And I think we have to think like that right now. We have to think like as the market's changing, I need to make sure I'm consistent about the right activities. I need to make sure I'm consistent about paying attention and watching my surroundings. Like think about that, right? I'm not saying we're on a journey to the South Pole, but we're definitely in a place right now where, like, as the market's changing and we're seeing some indicators that are what they are, right? Don't attach emotion to them. Just be realistic about what that means. If the market time's going up, think, how do I maximize that? Not, oh crap, I need to get a real job, right? That's the difference between resourcefully realistic and fearful and paranoid, right? It's like and we're gonna get to a concept in a little bit about that, but it's just something for you to think about. Which one of these 3, but it's gonna sound rhetorical, but like literally ask yourself, like, which one of these 3 am I acting like? I hope you're the third one, but like, be honest with yourself. Okay. There's my guess. Right? Everybody stay calm. Like, at the end of the day, like this book is a phenomenal resource for you if you use it. And if you think about, like, okay, what do I really want to accomplish? I don't want to go out of business. I don't want to go get a real job. Like I said, real job. I love my job. But like, I don't want to ever have to leave this industry. Like, something else from the book, the Great by Choice. Like, think about all the employees at Southwest Airlines on September 12th, 2001. Right? What airline posted a profit that year? Only one.
Southwest.
And it was Southwest. But think about that, right? Because there's like that, which the whole country was doing, by the way, on that day, right? Or there's like, okay, this is what it is, right? What are we gonna do? So that's what we're here to do. Credit to Benmont over at Integrity First, who manually made this, but this is almost an exact reproduction of what's in the book. And it is, I'm gonna tell you where to go to look at this. This is critical, and I'm actually gonna give you some advice on this that will make you money. Page 14. This is the shift cycle, and this is how it looks. Also, credit to Benmont for the typo and expectation. So, this is a graphical representation of a market change. So, I would argue that 2021 was probably steeper than that. Right? It was like a straight up like rocket ship. Ruh-roh. Right? That's where we are. And so here's what I want you to check, right? So we rephrased it. In the book, he has it as agents and available income. why did I why did I relabel this?
Cause you're you.
Because this is what's happening on the ground. This is the lead indicator of the lag indicator, which is agents and income, okay? The market's changing, that's the reality. But the danger zone for us is that if our expectations are also unrealistic, we end up in deep trouble, okay? This will equip you, by the way, for some amazing conversations with customers. We'll talk about that later. Because when you go to a listing and their expectations are here and the market is at that point here, how do you have that conversation without not getting the listing or seeming like a jerk? Right? Or investors, they're struggling right now because it's even more dramatic. Hey, I need to offer you $40,000 less than you thought it was worth 4 months ago. And they're still losing money on those deals, right? Asking at the door. So we have to get ahead of that. We have to be very realistic about what those market conditions are and be honest about how we're talking to people about the expectations. Because as we do that, we remargin and we're in a better position for this. Okay. Like, it's really easy to succeed here. It was really easy to succeed here. It's here that you have to master right now so that you have the opportunity when that gets. So Gary says it pretty clearly in the book. When the market shifts, there's only one thing to do, and that's to shift with it. If you keep acting without change, you're just basically accepting defeat in advance. There's 2 shifts that need to happen. There's a mental shift and an action shift or an activity shift. So tactic 1 of the book is get real, get right, mindset and action. And I just, it's not a long chapter, guys. Like, it is like really short, right? Am I correct? That's 3 pages. 4, 5, yeah. I mean, it is like that short, okay? So, there's the 2 things. It's just mental and action. And to take a 5-page chapter and to tell you guys that it's probably one of the most important things you could possibly read right now, like, there's no excuse. There's no excuse to not put your eyes on the page. Like, to read words like this. Our research shows that the 2 actions real estate agents must take personal ownership of are lead generation and lead conversion. Nothing becomes more critical to success than finding motivated buyers and sellers and closing them to an appointment.
You always have good.
It is cut and dry.
Looks like a chick I said.
Fergie, mute yourself. So there it is. What does get real mean and how do you get real? To survive and thrive in the shift, it's first get real. It's about mindset first. So that's a question for you. What does get real mean to you guys?
Realistic goals, realistic expectations.
Realistic expectations. Cool. What
Taking a look in the mirror.
Ooh, did you look at my slideshow?
Did not.
What else? What does get real mean? How do you avoid paranoia and how do you avoid optimism that's unwarranted? How do you get real?
Stop being fake.
No, that's your answer.
How do you get real?
How do you get real?
Pay attention.
Pay attention.
Get it done.
Get it done. Put in the work.
If you're gonna do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great attitude.
Sitting here, educated.
Yeah, learn about what's going on, right? Learn about what's going on and also what you can do. So I put this note. Angie says, be serious, ask questions, set realistic, sorry, I'm trying to.
Smart.
Be serious, ask questions, set realistic goals, and get to work. We're gonna talk about realistic goals. I'm about to throat punch all of you with that. So just hang in there. So, be proactive, not reactive. Mindy, I love that. Mindy says be proactive, not reactive, right? What was important about that graph I just showed you? Just real quick, just a reminder. I love these buttons, how they work. If this is the expectations and they're lagging behind reality, everything happens reactively for those people. You are the ones as trusted professionals who have to get ahead and be honest about the market conditions so you can be proactive. That was a really, really big one, Mindy. And I think like, and Lori says stay ahead of the market conditions. Absolutely, like that's huge. Because if you're not doing that, you are going to only be reactive. You're gonna be like, you're gonna look up in August of next year and be like, where's my money? Right? I'm broke. And like, where's my business gonna come from? Don't be in that situation. So there's a little tiny baby quote here. It says, know that growth comes from clarity, priorities, and focused action. That's from page 25. Doesn't that sound like a book that Gary Keller also wrote? Right? The one thing, heavy into goal setting. I went down the rabbit hole of that in preparation for this because I like I said, I was gonna throat punch you and I will still, it's coming up, but it's part of the getting real. Like we all wrote some lofty goals sometime in our life, right? Maybe in a goal setting class with me, but it says as the market shifts, you cannot control the market, right? We acknowledge that. We're a little bit of a passenger here. I was talking about the roller coaster and you're just like on it. There's still a truth to that regardless. But you can either be an active participant as the passenger, maybe have the map open, possibly get, hey, why don't we go that direction? Or you can literally be in the backseat, hands up screaming, right? So you can control your outlook and the response. So what is your outlook and how are you responding? What are you doing that creates control? The market does not determine your success. It simply determines your strategy. I'm going to share a quote in a second, but it talks about the goals, those realistic goals. We're going to go back to those, but revisit them. What do you want your business to achieve? I would write these questions down, by the way. What do you want your business to achieve? What is most important to you? And what are your top priorities? Is there anything in those questions about the market? So don't let the market dictate your goals. And don't let the market dictate your success. I had that quote on the prior slide and I put it again. The market does not determine your success. It simply determines your strategy. Okay. So if these goals are immovable, what's important to you in your life, like if it's your kids, do your kids go away when the market sucks? So how do you succeed in the things that are most important to you at all times? And then ask, what data do I need to determine the best strategy? Because this is the danger here, is that we just talked about the long list that Mike wrote down like 18 things of all of the things we could measure that would tell us if the market's shifting, right? What is the data that's going to help us write a really good strategy? I asked you before, what like when the market is at 5 days versus the market at 50 days, like the same strategy is not going to work, right? What would you need to do differently? You need to be looking at the data to make those decisions, because if you want to be proactive, not reactive, like Mindy said, then as you're watching days on market tick up, if you're watching back on markets also tick up, then you know that the activities that you can control can become your new strategies. Is that fair? Does that make sense? It probably sounds like I'm just beating on this, but I'm extremely passionate about the fact that like, when we get so attached to the strategies and we're so easy to let the goals go by the wayside. And that sucks to have to change your goal based on what's happening in outside conditions. So I want to talk about the data for a second, then we're going to come back to goals, okay? Because the data is going to drive what I'm about to talk about. So I like that. So I wanted to talk about these numbers that I was sharing before. So write these down. There's 4 KPs. Okay. There's actually 4. There's key performance. So not on the slide. You're gonna see the slide and I'm gonna tell you something different and then we're gonna come back and you're gonna understand why I said this. There are 4 KPs. There are key performance indicators. There are key process indicators. There are key people indicators. And there are key profit indicators. Okay, so within your business,
What was the first one?
key process, performance, or I might have reversed it, but key performance, key process, key people, and key profit. So what I have here is KPAs and KPIs of performance and process. So what's a KPI and what's a KPA? I've said it before. This is a test of your listening. What's a KPI and a KPA?
Data versus your strategy.
Yes. KPI is key blank indicator. KPA is key blank activity. So everything you're measuring in your business, if you don't like the number of leads, which is a KPI, that's a data point. If you don't like that, there's an activity attached to that. What's the activity attached to that?
Lead gen.
Yeah. Right? If you don't like your pipeline, which is a data point, what is the activity? This is a little harder question. You disagree on the first one. If you don't like the data point of the health of your pipeline, how much revenue is in your pipeline? If you don't like that number, what's the activity that you are in control of? It's not lead gen, it's lead conversion, follow-up. Yes. Okay. Now you start to see it. Like, so as you're getting into the get real, get right about the beginning of this book, that's where you do that. That's how that looks. If you're not analyzing your business like an actual business, which is the language I'm using right now, then you're putting yourself at a very big disadvantage, because people who do treat it like a business and remargin, there's a reason why investors are on here. There are people not even in real estate that emailed me and asked me if they could get on here, because like every industry can be affected by a shifting market, and every industry has these things. It doesn't matter if you're making widgets or selling houses, you have in process and performance indicators and process and performance activities that are attached to those. Is that fair? Okay. So now is the time to get real, get clear, and get real clear about your numbers and the market numbers. And that's really something that I'm going to challenge you to do between now and next week. It's to take a look at the numbers that you own and take a look at the numbers that you just need to pay attention to, which are the market. Okay. That's the quote. So I actually got that quote. Gary said that at a coaching training. And when I moved, I can't find that composition notebook that I wrote it in. So I said, Gary Keller-ish. He said something very much like that. Okay. It stuck with me. So I know it's like within a word or two of that, but yes, it is. You're ahead of it. So if your goals are immovable and the strategies to achieve them are not, then what is a realistic goal?
Goal that you feel you can attain.
That sounds pretty weak.
Smart.
Well,
I'm just like,
I mean, you could say that.
I'm just saying, like, if we're so easy to say, well, we need to set realistic goals, That doesn't sound like the South Pole to me. Right?
So just out of reach, we're realistic, but doubtful, I don't know.
Important, significant. A goal has to be important and significant. If you're not willing to wake up in the morning and do the work to do it on a sunny day and a rainy day, then don't make it a goal because it's not real, right? The guy who went to the South Pole that was an immovable goal. If it snowed 80 inches, he was still going to the South Pole, right? That may be where, for me, as a coach, as a leader, that's where I get so passionate. It's like people give up on the things, and it's because they haven't done that hard inner work to figure out what their significant South Pole or North Pole or South Pole sounds a little depressing, right? But like, what is the goal that is absolutely immovable to you? If it's like financial freedom for your family, that is a number. There might be a number there, but there's definitely something that you will not go home and look your kids in the eye and say, I didn't achieve it. Right? So, and that might sound really lofty for a conversation about a shifting market, but when the market gets hard, or when you have to do activities that are going to suck, which we're going to talk about next, or at least next week, when those harder decisions come along, when the decision to like open the tent and you look outside and it's like, well, 20 miles, right? That is when the goal needs to be so significant. So I can't overstate that enough, because regardless of what you're doing, or like where you are in life, if you're not attached enough to the goal, then the word isn't realistic, it's significant. Set a significant goal. Okay. And then figure out what the strategy is. This isn't a brag, but this is like, why did we set 175 appointments in 1 month in a downturning market?
You know what you're trying to achieve.
It was absolutely movable. Our team was, we have a TV board with our scorecard of the number of appointments set, and on the last day of the month, it was like 170. Do you think that there was a shred of a chance that they were going to leave that day with a number that was less than 175? No, like absolutely not. And they were high-fiving and fist bumping, and I teased them, and some of the guys are on here. I teased them and said that they were actually at 173, that there was a glitch, and they were so pissed. And I was not. I was just messing with them to see if I get them to 177. But but it's true, right? And it's like, so if our commitment to excellence and our commitment to great results is strong enough, then it won't matter, right? We figured out different lead sources. We got better at our conversion. We role play twice as much now and get better results. So we actually spend less time doing the activity and more time getting better at doing the activity. Okay. So we're going to talk about those things, but like, that's what happens when you're uber committed to things. Katie, use the tools, right? We have these. This is one of my favorite things ever. This is goal setting to the now. If you Google it, if you're online, if you just Google goal setting to the now, you'll find this exact graphic. It's from the Kick-Ass Guide to Goal Setting from The One Thing. But it's about figuring out like what's significant in your someday, and then breaking that down to what you need to do right now. Okay.
7 circles.
7 circles. Yes, absolutely.
I think
So
they have a big part in this too, because I know I had trouble figuring out what my goal was. So I figured out which of the 7 circles I needed to focus on to get that goal there.
can you clarify what you mean by the 7 circles?
I knew you were gonna ask that. It's in The One Thing. It's the 7 pieces of your life that have the most impact. So it's spiritual, business, personal. You're gonna have to help me on this one.
So it's financial, I have like an order: financial health, your business health, your spiritual health, your physical health, your job, your key relationships,
Sure.
and
Spiritual.
I said spiritual. It's probably the one we both suck at. And I was, is it mental? Not.
Spiritual.
It might be personal.
Personal, key relationships, business, job.
And is it financial?
Yeah, financials.
Yeah. So I think that's it. Okay. You hear it all. So the seven circles, it's all from the one thing, but like. That's a really good share from her, because if you find yourself sitting down and you're just like not really. Fired up by what you write down as a goal, maybe go there and think like, where in my life do I want to excel? Where am I sucking right now? And where do I want to have an absolute non-negotiable win? And that might help you. And then the topics might flush that out for you. So the GPS, which stands for goals, priorities, and strategies, and the 411, which is essentially a breakdown of your goal into a quantitative box that shows you where in your weeks and days you need to do the activities. The GPS is intent based, it's goal based, and the 411 is activity based. That's the best way to summarize it. And then your daily calendar with time blocks. Like, I'm gonna tell you, if your goal is to get in amazing shape and I look at your calendar and the gym's not on it, I probably don't believe you. Okay, so it's also true here in a shifting market. So again, we're taking a slight step off of like the market shift, because the reality is you've got to be in control of those types of things now. If you have been slacking on your time block calendar, great example, phenomenal example. The market's moving too fast for me to time block. Anybody feel squirmy when I say that? Right? I have to be responsive. I have to, like, we have to do 11D5 showings. I don't know what to do, right? So if you're willing to let the market dictate your calendar, then the market will also dictate your bank account later. And if you're not making time for the things that are truly significant, and when I say bank account, it might be emotional bank account, it might be family bank account. But like, if you're not making time and absolutely protecting it, then you will pay that price later. Like, there's a reason why I mentioned to you that we doubled down on our role play and also increased our results. It's because we focused on one thing, right? From the one thing, it's mandatory reading over there now. We focused on one thing that was going to have the biggest impact. We could drive leads. We could spend $100,000 a month on TV and all the other random advertising we do. But if we weren't converting it, it didn't matter. So that became the one thing. We changed that. We hit our appointment number. The goal was immovable. The strategies had to change. Now that makes sense? Okay. So the tools are there. We have the one thing. It's like talked about all the time in KW world. It's talked about all over the place. To be honest, it's like it's solid material. It's worth a read. We're reading Shift now, so you might want to pick your books. So I want to take you back. Remember this: when a market shifts, there's only one thing to do: shift with it. And there are two shifts to make. So first was the mental shift. We talked about that, and now we're going to talk about the action shift. Okay. Did I beat you guys over the head with mental stuff yet? Did I throw a punch about goals, realistic goals, whatever that means? There's something to be said for that, right? So a SMART goal. Can anybody say what a SMART goal is?
Measurable, attainable,
Realistic.
and timely.
Yeah. Okay. So attainable and realistic in the SMART goal is a little bit of like a bear trap, because then you can fall back and say, well, was it realistic? You have to like go to that dark place in your belly when you ask that question of like, am I letting myself off the hook and using realistic?
Isn't the R relevant?
It can be realistic or relevant. There's actually two versions of that. No, you're right. And there's actually a couple of T's too. But like timely or time bound. But like, that's up to you. Like, you just gotta be honest with yourself and go back to that question, like way early on when I had those three questions on there, like what do you want to have happen in your life? Right? I've made a commitment. I'll make it in front of the 40 people that we have here. I'm gonna write an article, and I'm gonna really try to get published. But I want to write an article about Elon Musk and the journey of failure. So I'm going to beta test it with you guys for a second here about goal setting, and we switch to action activities. How many rockets did Elon Musk blow up before he succeeded? Three.
Yeah.
If you blow up a rocket, is that a failure or a success?
Depends on how you look at it.
Depends on what your
Depends
goal
on
is.
how you look at it. Right? So I listened to an amazing interview with him where he shared the real truth was, if they didn't get the fourth rocket to go, they were out of money. What's Elon Musk's goal?
Then
No.
The-
Bigger than the moon.
Make
Mars.
everything electric.
Mars. Elon Musk's goal is Mars. So if you think that realistic and attainable are like, right, do you see like how big do you need to think for realistic and attainable? Where your actions are in alignment with that, because for him, the failure of blowing up 3 rockets. The failure of blowing up 3 rockets wasn't failure, it was part of the journey of the bigger goal, which was absolutely immovable. So the 4th rocket worked, and one of the things that he shared was that launching rockets is hard, which I think is actually a direct quote. He said, launching rockets is hard. I was like, well, that's something I would have expected to hear from a billionaire savant. And he said that you can't ever test all of the components in their real life environment until the moment the rocket's like heading off the ground. So you have to do so much work on each of the components in other environments, and then guess at what the environment's going to be like when it's rocketing off the ground and like the flames are coming out, right? Like all those different things to be able to do that. So he failed 3 times, succeeded on the 4th one, and immediately got a contract from NASA for $1.5 billion, saved the business. And now they are building Starship, which is multiple times larger than the rockets that were going off at that point, the Falcon ones. And by the way, they are also the ones sending humans to the space station right now, while NASA's rockets are not. Okay, you guys know that. Like NASA's program is way behind, and Elon's like failing forward. Failing forward is actually what Mindy said, and that's exactly what he's done. But failing forward is a cliche term that gets lost in the weeds of like really thinking about it like this. So I can't wait to write that article. But like you guys see what I'm talking about there? We get so caught up in successes and failures on the micro level because we're not thinking big enough like that. What is your Mars? Because then when the market shifts and you have to make hard choices about cutting expenses, cutting people out of your life, changing your time block, recommitting to lead generation, which is not comfortable, like, okay, then your goal was totally movable. You're not going to Mars. You might make it to the moon, or you're probably gonna blow up on the path, right?
I've blown up a lot.
We all, good, because you're gonna measure the successes, but like, you could also go back and measure the failures and acknowledge what we learned and what got you there. Because the reality is the 4th rocket wouldn't have succeeded if the first 3 didn't fail. So the action shift, get right. As the market shifts, it's time to move from inspiration to perspiration. I gotta be honest, I'm nervous for you all. Because I'm nervous that the perspiration that we were doing in the last 2 years trained us wrong. When you go back to Mindy, who's knocking it out of the park in the chat. When you go back to Mindy and she said being proactive versus reactive, we were just holding on for dear life. And the perspiration, the exhaustion, like who felt exhaustion? Right? And it was a good exhaustion. You're like, oh my gosh, like all these things, man, all this stuff, like people are calling me for showings, like all this other stuff, right? Like, but that perspiration wasn't the right perspiration. It was just what you needed to get through that really busy season. We're gonna have to rethink and relearn. So I said that at the beginning. There's a little bit of unlearning and a little bit of relearning that needs to happen right now. This is where that needs to happen. Like the activities, like I was having conversations with people, like what does your time look like? What does your calendar look like? Showings, okay. What else? Writing offers. I have to write 7 offers to get 1 accepted. So it just takes all my time. Okay. Well, like what happens when you don't have leads? Right? Those all go away. And understanding that what worked yesterday probably won't work today, and what matters now probably didn't then. Think about that. What matters now probably didn't then. You could, I'm going to argue, you could show up, put a sign on the yard, and get a paycheck. Right? So what matters now is different than that, where there was maybe not as much skill required, and maybe a different skill is required now in order to succeed. I think on the investment side of things, that is where people are really hurting, because the market was doing the heavy lifting. They literally built a business without a business. There was no business model. There was no lead process, there was no sales process, there was no disposition process to sell all the homes because they didn't need it, right? All they had to do was find somebody with a pulse. And the hedge funds would buy it, right? The hedge funds would buy it for 108% of the value, and the realtors were all like, I don't understand how that math works. Guess what? It doesn't. Okay, so when the market shifts, it's gone. And if you didn't have a business plan that was survivable of all of that, you're going out of business. Like, I'm in these group chats, I'm in these email threads or in these Facebook groups with masterminds of investors, and they're literally hedge funds are shutting down entire markets massively, right? So like, if you as a real estate agent are relying on a source of business that feels a little weird going into a shifting market, pay attention because it's happening out there, okay? And if your clients are people who rely on that type of business, right? And if you're an agent working with an investor, pay attention. Don't be the agent who doesn't tell the investor that it's a bad buy. Because when they run out of money after the second bad buy, you lost a repeat customer. Okay? Can we agree on that, please? Coming from the other side. 2 critical actions. I already gave you this quote because I think it's such an important quote. The 2 critical actions you must take total ownership of, that's you personally, must take total ownership of, are lead generation and lead conversion. Okay? There's a caveat. You can own it without doing it. But until you are ready for someone else to do it, you get to own it and do it. We understand that? Okay, that's the journey of leverage. I do it, we do it, they do it. You have to I do it before you get to they do it. There's going to be a we do it period in the middle where you're trading that work off and you're teaching somebody else to do it at the standards that you want to do it. Okay. But on a growth trajectory, you guys have a team, right? You have a team. Think about these things like as a leader, and we're going to talk about some things that make leaders squirmy in a minute. But like as you're on that journey, these are non-negotiable. You must have total control over your lead generation and conversion process. If you haven't buckled down on your CRM, right? If you haven't done that, now's the time because you don't want to be building that plane while you're flying it. And again, I shared the same quote at the bottom because it's too important. Now you think about it, understanding that what worked yesterday probably won't work today. That also applies to lead generation. Okay. So good news. When the market time goes from 5 to 57, what do you have time to do?
Lead gen.
Lead gen. What else? How do you lead gen when you have 57 days instead of 5? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Anybody hear of this thing? And they used to do it way back in the day. Open house. Door knocking. Mailers. Some of the basics, right? Circle prospecting. Like these things can come back because we've gotten time now on our side, right? So I don't want to give it all away from something that Ryan and I did, but I'll share this kind of anecdotally. One of the things that we implemented, Megan was a huge part of this actually, was we implemented a customer experience plan way back, pre all of this stuff, right? We were still in the basement of Queen Street, and actually even before that, when we were
In the basement of Howard Hanna.
and when we were in the basement of Howard Hanna, was we implemented a customer experience plan that included the way that we rolled out our properties. We rolled out every listing exactly the same way. It didn't matter anything. And actually, there were sellers who we would meet with. Ryan would tell you this is true. We met with some sellers where they were like, I don't want to do it that way. We're like, it might not be a good fit. We were so committed to the process because we knew that if we got a seller who was like, yeah, but it's going to be sold in 2 weeks. And we knew that market times were 60 days, that it was probably going to be a terrible experience for both of us with unrealistic expectations. If we said, hey, we roll out properties like this so that we are in control and we are set up for an open house on week 1, an open house on weekend 2, we review offers on Monday if we receive any, then we go back, we circle back around, we do circle prospecting, most part if we haven't sold by week 4, we knew what our process was, we could have a process if we had time. Okay, so I'm just sharing with you the way you can start to think differently. That's not all doom and gloom. It's actually really good because now you're going to be able to double and triple dip on the opportunities you do have to create more lead generation. It's not the speed of light anymore, like 2021, where it was literally like phone number comes in, show them houses, write 9 offers, see what happens, right? Like that franticness can go away and you can start to have more control. So we're gonna go deep into that type of stuff next week, with tactic 4 and tactic 5, which are lead gen and lead conversion. But tactic 2 is expense management. I'm looking to see if Leslie came on. The finance director, said she might pop in. It's like, there's slides about money. So if you have the book, you can go to tactic 2, which is remargining your business and expense management. There's a quote on page 29. The number one determinant of thriving is lead generation, but the number one determinant of surviving is expense management. So before we go into all this, red light, green light, all the other things, don't do these until you've done what we just talked about. Because if you don't know what your goal is and the strategies that you're gonna need and the data to support all those decisions that you're about to make about potentially people that work for your team or the money that you're spending, don't do it uneducated. You need to know what your goals are. You need to do that. Tim Ferriss said that on, it was probably family reunion mid-shift or whatever, mid-COVID. And he made a quote, and it has stuck with me. He said, you have to do the inner work before you do the outer work. Okay, so we are like little gnats, and we like to do outer work really quick. We're like, let's go do it, or we don't do anything at all, paralysis, which is also expected. But if you do the inner work, it makes it really hard to not do the right outer work, because if you're really honest about that type of stuff and the data and what the data is telling you and what's important to you, then you're going to be looking at that and it's going to tell you one of two things. One, okay, I need to make some changes, or two, oh my God, I'm afraid to do that action, but I'm also not willing to not get that result, so I'm going to do it, right? Does that make sense? Who set a goal and missed it completely? Yeah, we all have, right? Because if we don't do the inner work before we do the outer work, we never do the outer work, we do the wrong outer work, and we get a different result. Right? Like if you're super committed to weight loss or super committed to whatever a goal might be in your life, right? Like you'll figure it out. You will figure it out. You will do it. So that comes now to the money, because these decisions. Great book, by the way. I told him I'm a total book nerd. But phenomenal book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Okay, we all carry a lot of garbage around finances. Don't let your history with finances impact your ability to survive a shifting market. Like, did anybody grow up in a household where we don't talk about money? Right? Little nods.
My dad definitely was like that.
Yeah, we don't talk about it. Okay. So people that grew up in that household, it might be hard to go down this road and be like really real and really transparent about a household budget in a shifting market, right? Because we don't talk about money, or we don't have money, right? These are some bold concepts, right? We probably, if you've been to bold, you're like, oh, I remember the checkbook exercise, right? But like the whole, we don't have money. So that book, Psychology of Money, really breaks that down, gives you some good equipment to be able to have just even some more financial awareness. But the activities of these red light and green lighting in your expenses, and red, yellow, green exercise with your bank statement, you will have a 90% chance you do not do these if you don't get right about your mindset around money. And that could cost you, right? Like if you don't expense manage now, then when you run out of money, you will not even have the choice of, do I stay in real estate or do I go get a real job? Because it will have been dictated for you by your lack of action now. So do the inner work before you do the outer work, especially when you're talking about money. There's so much emotional attachment to the final piece. So red light, green light on expenses. This is where you literally go through, Megan just says yes. This is where you go through and chop. Okay, sometimes you can do that really quick. You can red light, green light expenses, and you can all you're determining is like, do I really use All Trails Premium, right? That I do. So I kept it. But right, like, do I really use it? Red light, green light, you can be quick about that. The deeper exercise, and you can do this on a person that you can do that for your business. On the personal level, this is an exercise I strongly recommend. Red, yellow, green with your bank statements. When's the last time you printed your bank statements and did a real analysis of what's on there?
Yesterday.
Smart. See, I told you, the new people, they come in, they're like, I don't know, I'll just do it, right?
Because you have bookkeeping.
Sort of bookkeep, but like, don't be me, I outsource it, right?
Yeah.
So like, I like check in, I'm like, is everything okay? The numbers look all right? Yeah, cool. But like, so my assistant, she was like, she has my bank, she helps me with my banking. And she actually came to me and she was like, Joe, like, you haven't looked at this stuff. I see these expenses coming out and like, you've got, like, just take a look. And she literally just sent me like a list of 4 or 5 things and I was like, I don't use any of those things. Like, we can kill them all. It was that easy. But like, I should have known it. It was terrible, right? But, so red light, green light with your bank statement, there's a difference between your red light, green light of your business stuff. And kind of that's like, what do I expect that money to do for my business? And red light, green light that. And then the red, yellow, green exercise with your bank statements is really like figuring out what the reality is that's coming out. That's where you uncover who that you haven't used, didn't even know you had. That's when you uncover like, oh yeah, I clicked that one button and I got an ESPN premium and like, I've never used it because I wanted to watch a soccer game like one Sunday, right? Like that's where that lives, is on the red, yellow, green thing. So I challenge you to do it. You can go back 30 or 60 days and have a tremendous impact and find yourself $300, $400, $500, $700, $1,000, and you'll appreciate that because $1,000 over time, it's compounded. And attacking both fixed and variable expenses. Who can give me some examples of the difference between fixed and variable expenses?
Fixed would be your mortgage,
Fixed is a mortgage,
Cell phone bill.
cell phone bill,
car payment,
car payment,
insurance.
insurance. These things that like, they're just gonna be there. You're gonna wake up in October and it's still
Long-term obligation.
long-term obligations. What's a variable? What's an example of a variable expense?
Amazon.
Medical, Amazon. Don't- Why you gotta come up with that?
Month-to-month contracts.
Month-to-month contracts, what do you say?
That's it, Netflix.
Netflix,
Region
yeah,
plan.
yeah, okay, so I'm gonna, yeah, so regions plan, but I'm gonna generalize that with like your food and alcohol budget. Very,
We don't touch that one.
We did this at our house with sushi because we, whenever I have a closing, we celebrate with sushi, which is my kids' favorite. I hate sushi, but they love it and I get something from the botch table, it's fine. But the budget was always $100 and everything's gone up, right? So like the last sushi bill was like 150 and I was like, wow, boys, like we gotta pull back. So we did a red, yellow, green, literally on sushi rolls. First, it was amazing how willing they were to share. Okay, like we no longer needed 3 California rolls. Now we could get 1 and everybody would share. But we figured out a way to bring it down to $100 again before taxes. And they all got what they wanted. They all shared. Everybody was full after dinner. Like it was fine. But we did like this exact exercise. Like,
that's awesome. So I encourage you to do it with highlighters that are different colors. Like,
Yeah.
but if you're gonna do it on a total scale, but like you just said, I mean, and what an awesome, props to you, but what an awesome gift you just gave your kids. Because you're equipped, like, they're gonna go off to the real world someday, I'm sorry to tell you, but they're gonna go off to the real world, right? And like, that's equipment that they'll carry with them to be financially responsible. Because what if one day they are an Elon Musk and they're running a business that's waiting on a $1.5 million contract and they have to make red light, green light decisions at a massive scale.
well, what was funny about it is what became a fixed role, and that was their term. Like, we have to get the California roll. Like, you can't have sushi night without California rolls. That was fixed. So like that was their term that they used. And then everything else was what they felt like or a variable.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to watch them do that together.
That's cool.
So,
That's cool. So I would argue that they knew which ones were immovable.
yeah, yeah.
Sushi, and actually sushi night was immovable. You just figured out a different strategy. I'm just gonna remind you guys like how that connects, right? Like if you really want it bad enough, you'll figure it out, but you gotta know what you want bad enough. So attacking both fixed and variable. I'll give you a good example of attacking fixed because we often think that fixed means literally unchangeable or we can't, like it's probably off limits. This might be where you go back to your phone provider and say, I'm bouncing. I can't wait to go to I'm gonna get a Jitterbug phone. I'm done with T-Mobile, I can't stand it. And they'll say, well, wait a second, we'll save you, right? And there might be customer retention options there that help you reduce. So don't be afraid, like when you just swipe past that picture, like, oh, phone is $185 or whatever it is, right? When you swipe past it, don't be afraid to be like, I wonder if I can tackle that and maybe get that down. I'll give you an example. Pittsburgh's office is moving. And we had a terrible experience with Verizon. And so we played Verizon against Comcast out there, and it saved us a ton of money. We also, the movers, right? So we just moved here in April, but the movers gave us a quote, and I looked at it and I was like, I don't really like the quote. And so all it took was a call to get it down by several $1,000s for the exact same move. Like literally just like, hey, I don't like that number. And they were like, well, we can probably do it for this number. And I was like, yeah, I like that number way better, right? So don't be afraid to kind of lean into some of those things that you might feel are a little bit off limits. And thank you for that share, because that's good in real life. All right, I've said this in my own words a couple of times, but I want you to read, I love the colors that they let me do them. I want you to read that quote there. In up markets, we tend to acquire habits and patterns of doing things that don't stop us in good times, but grind us to a halt in bad. That quote continues in the book to the next line. In other words, we do so much right that the market covers up the wrong. So when I was talking about investors, right, who were like getting by on hedge fund deals that didn't make any financial sense, right? It was a pattern that didn't stop them in good times, but is grinding them to a halt in bad times.
You can always see who's swimming naked when the tide goes out.
Oh, that's a great one. Rick Keller says a lot of business people, this is good, maybe make you feel a certain way. A lot of business people succeed in spite of themselves. In the chat, thanks, Rick. Yeah, I think that's true. And the market lets them get away with that. Especially a good market, right? You go all the way back to the beginning when I showed you the ups and downs graph, right? In the up graph, yeah, you don't have to manage sushi. We're making money, right? Everything's great. And then as things start to turn, as we go from a 2.8% interest rate to a 6.25% interest rate, don't love that anymore, right? So I thought that quote really, really hit. And I think we need to get honest. I put that in the bottom part. That's page 31, by the way, if anybody was following along. Tactic 2, expense management. Challenge everything, right? Like we were talking about that. I mean, we're saying that, but like literally challenge everything. And I want you to think in terms of your business. When was the last time you challenged your business expenses? Because that's what the second bullet is. Get your money smart again and find your ROI on your expenses. Hold your money accountable. So we're going to go over to Integrity First Home Buyers World for a second. So I shared with you, we have this massive budget every month for lead generation. When I went over there like a year and a half ago, it was like the Wild West. It was the very typical real estate agent's business, except on an enormous amount of steroids, okay? Imagine the way that you get those calls of like, hey, I can sell you leads, and just saying yes to every single one of those calls until you're spending north of $70,000. That's what it looked like over there. And so saying no to the wrong things needed to happen, but nobody had the data to do it. So part of that journey over there was I spent the first 3 months just getting the numbers. It was, and I'm not really great at minutia, so it was sort of painful. And it was also hard to go back to every meeting and say, I'm still gathering data. I don't have any answers, and we're not changing any actions. We're not changing any actions until I know what to do. Okay. So there were at that time more than 10 lead sources that were getting north of $5,000 a month. Right? We now have a core four. We call it a core four. It's like, we have our own language of that. We call it our core four lead generation sources. We know where our results come from at a predictable rate, and we hold that money accountable. So Lindsay, everybody remember Lindsay from Real Estate Exposures and 360, and everybody's like, where does she take pictures anymore? I snagged her unapologetically. And she is an absolute rock star in the space of the director of marketing over there. And she isn't on, probably wouldn't mind if I shared this. She comes from a fairly conservative Mennonite, like fiscally conservative Mennonite, she says frugal background. There is no better person to have holding the purse strings of a massive marketing budget than her. And so she and I work together strategically, making decisions on what's working and how the results are and what the process looks like. And she says, we don't have the money for that. And then I have to ask permission whenever I want to change the budget. We are absolutely savage about the spending, because in order to spend as much as we do and to expect 175 appointments to come out of that, you can't spend it in the wrong place. And when the market shifted, it put us in a perfect place to still be able to run the business at a super high level. Because not only did we do 175 appointments, what we also did was we acquired more than 40 pieces of inventory last month. So we are leaning into the shift in a good way, but we were able to do that because a year ago, I spent 3 months just sitting back and building dashboards to look at my numbers. So when I say holding your spending accountable, it's that. Like and there are places where we look at it and we say, like our target, rough target, and you guys can write this down, is a 4 times ROI on an expense that's attached to a lead generation source. Whenever we see one that's actually too high, we get suspicious and we ask what's going on. So, because there's no magic pill anywhere, guys, where like things are too good to be true and like the lead sources just drop out of thin air. Like if you see something like that, something's probably off. But I strongly encourage you to get, in my word, savage about holding those dollars accountable.
I will say too with this, I have a really hard time looking at this and being like, okay, it's way overwhelming. So I found somebody that actually will come to me and say, what's this or what's that? Or, hey, why are we doing this? Or why are we doing that? Or let's go over this. And that's an accountability thing that we do now, because for me alone, I would never do this. I would 100% not do this. But knowing that I have to do it with somebody else, that makes it a little bit easier to actually go and do.
Yeah.
So find somebody you're comfortable with, and if that's similar for you.
I appreciate that. And I also want to encourage you, because like there are one of the things that made Lindsay really great to bring into the marketing director role is that she had no knowledge of what she was getting into. So I said, just come on over, because you're a great high talented person and we're going to figure this out. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people who are doing marketing analysis, like if you have a background in marketing, there tends to be some rigidity on the marketing side, and then you have the social media marketers who are completely wild. So I'm kind of looking at the two of you guys, because this is, and not in a negative way, because what we found is that story branding, which is essentially what you do at a very high level, good, in a good way, right? But story branding is a little bit of a long haul, right? And you have to know what the cash cycle is on that lead generation source in order to know what the ROI is. So I'll just share with you, we just made a hire. Actually, one of them is on here, Josh Berge. I yelled at him for not being on mute. Josh Berge was a referral. So we looked at that and said, wow, lead generation for talent came from our social media presence. And so the story brand that we were building leads to somebody who's a multiplier for revenue, and may not be a lead source where like, oh, a seller reached out, but somebody who generates revenue reached out, right? So just, you have to know your business at an intimate level to be able to like have that analysis. So I'm just like, not saying that like social media marketing is bad, but just be like really in tune with it. And we see a lot of people, who are attached to the emotional deposits and let the financial deposits off the hook. Okay. No judgment. So I'm like, love you guys, saying it in a positive way. Your business is like going very well. So like, no, not saying that in a negative way. I've actually seen it at a really high scale. Some of these investors, like the guys who show up in like Ferraris and stuff, and you're like, all right, but like, you're not doing any business, right? So are you doing some of these things for the emotional deposit or for the financial deposit? So I'm saying that I'm putting that uncomfortable topic out there for you to hold that accountable. Because it already is uncomfortable to hold finances accountable, let alone to say, what is my expectation of return on this $2,000 a month Facebook spend that I have, right? And like Facebook ads are a great example where it's like the paid stuff, like you're doing a great job of organic, right?
Yeah.
So like, but there's a deposit of time there for an ROI of something. So like paying attention to those things and managing those little components is the nuances of being a great business owner. Because again, regardless of whether you knew that you signed up for that or not, being a real estate agent, it means you own a business, okay? So like, do you think that McDonald's knows exactly how much Coca-Cola pumps out of those weird little boxes filled with syrup every single time, right? They have everything dialed in. In fact, that's exactly what made McDonald's so highly efficient and scalable, was their great systems. It wasn't their delicious anything. Right?
Different fries though.
French fries, yeah. Yeah, but actually, another phenomenal book, by the way, if anybody has a high interest in like talking about marketing and accountability to marketing, there's a great book called Covert Cows. So Covert Cows was a book written by the chief marketing officer of Chick-fil-A. Does anybody think that that's a guy you want to learn from?
Yes.
It is a superly good book. Such a good book. And for you guys that are like social media real savvy, I would read Building a Story Brand. And not like, because having a clear picture of who the avatar.
By Donald Miller.
By Donald Miller. Yeah. Building a clear avatar of who you want to communicate with changes everything. It might be the nuances of the language that you're using, but to get the outcome that you actually want, because you might be speaking on social media, think you're speaking to one audience, and the way that you're delivering it is not connecting, and you're half as efficient or effective as you could have been. So I just want you to, now is the time to do that as you're remargining and getting very smart about that stuff. Yes.
There's another really good social media book. It's called Jab, Jab, Right Hook. It's by Gary, and I apologize, I'm gonna butcher. his
Gary
name.
V.
Gary, yeah, Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
I heard him speak at a conference, and he is amazing because he does it all without spending an extra dollar on boosting. And his are calls to action.
Yeah.
Like how to get people to actually show up at places and stuff. So I use some of his techniques to open houses, and they're very effective.
So Gary V, the Jab Jab Hook is give, ask,
Yeah.
right? So that's a super good book. Mindy asked, can I say that again about holding money accountable? Do it, hold it accountable. Hopefully I answered that. She said she needs to. So find your ROI, and if you don't know, great example, if you go to your business expenses and you like maybe pick something out that's in the middle of like your spend, ask like, how would I know this is working? That's the question you really want to ask. How would I know this is actually working? Oftentimes we get poor answers because we ask poor questions. So ask a question like, it's not like, how do I know this is the right amount? It's how do I know this is working? Or how will I know that this money is giving me the return I want? Ask the real question to get the real answer, because then it'll send you a little bit more on that inner work, that Tim Ferriss inner work, and you'll go and you'll do that. Is that helpful? Think a little differently about that? Arrows laying down. Oh, got it. Okay. So tactic 3, do more with less. It's about leverage. So tactic 2, bust through finances. So let's just recap where we are. It starts with the mindset, right? It starts with get real, get right. Accept that there's a shift happening, study the data that supports that, and then make sure that you have the mental commitment to power through and work towards your goal. Once you've done that, you know that your activities need to be in alignment with that. So then it starts to just say, get ready to work hard, basically, right? But make sure you're working hard in the right places. And then it goes to finances, because once you've got the mindset right, then you're probably open to changing your financial position and accepting the fact that your spending habits that worked in a good market aren't going to work in a bad market. So that's all the stuff that is leading us to this one, which is the people. So what tactic 3 is about is leverage, which is when the market turns, it is time to roll up your sleeve and for everyone around you to do the same. When the market shifts, your entire organization must shift. Now, if you're an organization of one, you're the CEO, you're the lead generation department, you're the showing assistant, you're all of it, right? There's a great book called E-Myth Revisited, and basically what they have you do is like list out all of the tasks of your job, and then those become the job descriptions for each of the people that you would hire to replace yourself in that component. It's a super interesting concept. Gary's concept around leverage is not a whole lot different than that. But if you're an organization, ask the same question, like what do I need to hold accountable within the organization? And am I set up with an organization that's designed for success? I will share with you. When Ryan and I, on our journey with the team, we changed the structure, the organizational structure of our team slightly. Because in the market of 60 days, right, we needed a lot of leverage, keyword, we needed a lot of leverage on the open houses. We needed time, right? Because like market time was slower. We needed to make sure we had buyers agents that were out there that could work in that market. As the market sped up and sped up and sped up and sped up, and listings became much more in demand. Then we switched to a little bit more of a hybrid model, right? So then you saw, well, that was by the time we were here, and you saw Kayla and Kate started to get more involved in the listing side, which actually teed them up for individual success. Like I love that we cultivated people who can run successful businesses by their own right. That's literally like my journey as a leader. I never wanted to like hold on to my team at that script, right? So I love that. But that evolution was part also, not just part of our lifestyle evolutions of me and Ryan, but also part of the demand of the market changing. Because it's really hard when the market time's 5 days to tell your buyer's agent, like, hey, you're going to be out there grinding 100% of the time, and my listing sold in 4 days, right? So the demands change, so you need to pay attention. But now on the other side of that, everybody here needs to be thinking about that. And focusing on the right activities is going to be a part of that, both for yourself and as an organization. Why did I pick that meme? Other than it's hilarious and a great movie.
Efficiency.
Efficiency. It is. It's about efficiency, right? So those are the 4 questions. I didn't make those up. They're in the book from Gary. What are my business priorities? When do they need to get done? Who is the best person to do them? And how should they be done? If you're an organization of one, ask it of yourself. If you're expecting people within your organization or within the team or whatever, or people around you, I mean, this could even be your vendors, right? Like hold accountable your title company, hold accountable your TC, hold accountable whatever. Like, is this in alignment with my priorities? Is this maximizing my efficiency? Right? Because as you're looking at your spending and holding your spending accountable, you're also making sure that you're getting the result you want and that you're maximum effectiveness and efficiency, effective and efficient. So this slide might be the most important. It's super boring, and I was like all excited about my colors, shades, and all that other stuff. All the other slides. Pay attention to this. Pay attention to this. These are the 6 core competencies of a business. Lead generate, capture, and convert to appointments. Present for agreements. Like the wording in the book, I didn't love. So let me just be really clear about presenting for agreements. That's when you are getting a committed business relationship. Think of it that way, right? We are now consummating a business relationship. I've earned the buyer. I've earned the seller. If it's an investment, I've got the house under contract, right? Show buyers and market sellers. So that's going to be like the servicing of the clients in terms of whatever their real estate need was. Write and negotiate contracts, which is making the deals. Coordinate for closing and manage the money. Do you have a regular cadence of doing these things? Are you paying attention to that? Do you have your finger on the pulse of all of these? Where have you let your finger off the pulse of any of these? Anybody have any feelings or thoughts about this?
I've definitely, for a long time struggled with properly capturing, like. League comes in, but like doing that super long term, like guaranteed play, every like the follow plan.
Mhm.
A really effective one that's really scalable to me has been very complicated to make over the years.
Mhm.
To answer your question,
Don't miss next week.
yeah.
But yeah, because so that this like. The first one there, right? Lead capture, convert to appointments, lead generate, capture, convert to appointments. That is essentially what we're gonna talk about in very deep detail next week. It's basically, if you wanna ask like what my day-to-day job is, it's that. Okay, and. We've done data, we have scale on our side, right? We're doing. I don't know, we'll probably do 450 deals this year. So we have scale. I believe that when we did the last analysis, that over 60% of our transactions that we got under agreement had more than 11 touches. Our most touches was 27. So the 11 was an average. Right? Because it was over 60%. So, and I said this at another presentation. If you don't have an automated 11, you're already under the curve. Right? Because it means that if it takes that many on average and somebody else out there is willing to do 11, you're missing that business. You're willing to do more than that. So, right? So it sucks. Not even a lot. I told you like the first 3 months of my job was like gathering data. The next 3 months was doing exactly that. It was like because in a business and Integrity First was a really interesting example because it's basically just a real estate team on steroids, right? With the component in the middle of buying and selling real estate, like honestly it's the same, right? But like they had the churn and burn, right? So it was a double-edged sword of uncontrolled expenses, which I told you was a huge issue at the front end, right? Uncontrolled expenses with scattered lead generation sources. And because they didn't have that under control, they weren't doing follow-up, they had no idea what was actually working and not working. I'll give you a really interesting example, specific numbers. Over the course of 60 days, we had 87 appointments set from outbound calls. How many contracts do you think we got from that?
Actually 1%.
87, no, these are appointments set, like literally like, yes, come on out. 87, how many?
20.
20, how many?
60.
2.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, oh shit, right? Because, and it changed everything about the structures, about what we were doing, because there's a bold law. What's the bold law? Don't mistake movement for achievement. 87 appointments is a lot of movement. Two deals is not a lot of achievement, right? So if you go back to the money and then tie that into what we're talking about here with the core competencies that you need to be paying attention to, it's like you could be doing that in your business and not even know it if you don't have the pulse. Like it took really getting nitty gritty and granular about our numbers. So now, and I'm not going to do a screen share of it, but I have a dashboard that shows me exactly what the contact to contract rate is for every single one of our leads categories. And now our dialing is up to 4%. Hooray. But our non-negotiable benchmark for contract to contract is 10%. So we know that we need other lead sources that are exceed 10%. So we do, we have some that are 14%. Obviously, what's the top converting lead source? It's referrals.
Referrals?
Yeah, it's referrals. Yeah. So
Probably the easiest.
yeah, because they're TMs, right? Like, hey, I trust this, you have a guaranteed trust, right? They hand you over with trust. So if that's the case, then it's those are higher converting, but then that just outweighs the 4% of our outbound calls. Make sense? We can only know that because we measure it and we hold it accountable at an extremely high level. So it comes back to the 6 core competencies. Be a CEO of your business, guys. So people begins with you. Oh, I read it, Michelle. Oh, sorry. People begins with you. So before you, somebody said, look in the mirror, I think when, is it you? There. People begins with you. Before you look at others, take an honest look at yourself. Are you being a CEO of your business? What I just said, right? If you were your own boss, what would your employee review look like? Mike's like, oh shit. Right?
We need
Like,
to talk.
have you ever, yeah, we need to have a talk. We need to come into my office. All right,
You suck a block schedule.
right? Like, think about it, like, that's, but like, so remember how I said you get shitty answers when you ask shitty questions? That was a great question. If you had to give yourself an employee review, what would it be like? Because when you ask that question, you get answers that point out the places you need to shine a light in your business. Okay, are you maximizing your own productivity? Are you doing what matters most? How do you know what matters most? You do the goal setting exercise we talked about 47 times. Now you understand how those building blocks add up? And are you doing what you get paid the most to do? Right? The business has more components than I wish it did, but they have to exist, right? We have a lot of paperwork. We have a fiduciary responsibility, right? There's the whole component of transaction coordination. But so as you're remarketing your business, you also ask yourself, okay, so I want to cut my costs or I want to pay attention to those expenses, but where do I get paid the most to spend my time and make sure, because maybe you make a switch, there's something called a switch cost. Maybe you make a trade where you pay the transaction coordinator because it buys you probably 7 to 8 hours per transaction. And those 7 to 8 hours earn you $2,000 more. No brainer. You see that? But you can hold that accountable when you're paying attention to the details. That's it. I wanted to finish on finances. There's going to be a ton. I did not do a super deep dive on that tactic. Because there's going to be agent financials coming up, there's market center, there's like a ton of classes right now. As we go to the end of the year, people set their budgets. I just encourage you to take that next step with those types of things. But in the concept of a shift and the book shift and a shifting market, you have to do it. You have to do it. Gary, like, does anybody follow Keller Williams on Instagram?
I might start doing it actually. That's probably not a bad idea.
Do it. No, they put a ton of effort into it. It's an interesting story. If you go and you look at Instagram, and I think this is being recorded, but hopefully nobody yells at me for this. If you go and you look at the Keller Williams Instagram, there was this girl who really her job was social media manager. She was doing a ton of work and building it up, and it was fairly entertaining content. Gary made cuts at corporate. She hasn't been on any reels in a while. I don't know, but I'm just saying, right? Like, you have to make those hard decisions. And so it goes back, like I said, to having to know where your North Pole is and what is critical to your business and those 6 core competencies so you can make those decisions. Because when you have to have a decision like, hey, the market's shifting and we need to make a different move here, that's gonna suck. It's uncomfortable, but if you're committed and confident in the decision that you're making, it's the right way. Okay. So those financial things were, I didn't mean to breeze by that but there's just so many other classes that are coming up that are gonna cover that stuff. So we are a whopping 48 pages in. And you guys didn't have to read before you came. So you're welcome. Hopefully I covered it.
I fall asleep
and
every time.
did justice. Yeah, just some dry parts, but you see some of the quotes that I pull out that are hit you like a left hook. So, ahas or questions? What are your thoughts? I want to hear as many as possible. Please. Online.
Another big thing
You're
we
welcome.
realized too, Joe, is the young and diversification's taken over too. Millennials are gonna buy more this year, correct? Or am I wrong?
I think demographically, the millennials are just going to be on an upswing of real estate in general.
They're the largest generation. I mean, they're larger than the baby boomers. So even though,
If you're looking at buying, then
Yeah.
yes, if you're looking at
Yeah.
overall, probably no, because the baby boomers are all going to.
So I was at I saw a speaker.
Sorry, Tina.
Probably
I
like
know.
6 years ago, who drew the demographic curves and essentially said that in this period of time in early to mid 2020s, that there would be a collision course between baby boomers and millennials because they both want the same type of inventory. From a demographic standpoint, they both want lower maintenance. They don't want the McMansions. Sorry to anybody who has or is working on a McMansion deal. But they don't want the 3,000 square foot houses with a third of an acre. A lot of millennials don't have that status desire, and the baby boomers are downsizing from those. So interesting to maybe have that conversation within your business is to say, do I want to go after that for sellers and then figure out where the inventory lies? I'll tell you, somebody who's really on the cutting edge of that is these builders that are building these kind of communities. There's one in Marietta where it's like a mixed use community. If you're going up along the river, it's on the right hand side. It has commercial, it has apartment rent, townhome.
Are you talking about right before you get to the sheets?
Yes, I think it's called Riverview or something like that. That's a PUD, a planned unit development, where they basically pre-plan all the different structures. Those are fairly genius. Up in Mechanicsburg, there's a few that are kind of similar, where it's like a little of everything and like a really cool little chic restaurant. Arcona, if anybody's ever done a deal there, a massive sprawling community. It has all of everything. It has like a little boutique clothing shop. It's like, who wants to shop at a boutique clothing shop? Millennials do. And they want to walk there from their pimped out 2,000 square foot townhome that doesn't have any grass to mow. Right?
West of the Mississippi it hasn't really come east yet, but builders west of the Mississippi are building like a smaller version of a McMansion, but on the back side of it, they've essentially stuck a half of a ranch house. And it's either for in-laws, but it's not like an in-law suite technically, or it could be an au pair for somebody who works from home, or it could be the returning, millennial kids who haven't saved enough for their own home. But it has like you could get 2 mortgages on the same like physical structure. And this side has a garage and this side has a garage. So if you look at it from different sides, it literally looks like a ranch house and a regular normal house have abutted. And that's like the #1 building right now from Lennar Homes, and a lot of the big builders west of the Mississippi for intergenerational living. It hasn't come east yet, but it's really taking over. It's on the west.
Starting to do malls and making them into the PUD communities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because what else you can do it?
Yeah.
150,000 square feet of.
Right.
Casino.
Well, that's a good.
I miss the balls, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it?
Not
The wall.
storage, bro.
Have you been to the gallery?
Miss the balls. It's
That's like the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would just be a popular place in New York.
Any other ahas or questions? That was good. I mean, there's a lot of socioeconomic factors that come into play there.
Cause it's weird nowadays, like when I call people who are like twice my age, I say, hey, we got ratified, they pick up right away. But like when I get a deal with the youngins, 2023, call them, they don't pick up, I text them, okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah.
Like, there's no emotion.
So we're gonna talk about that, and we're gonna talk about that next week, but the communication style between demographics and the shipping market, it could definitely change.
I think that's really important, and coming at it from this side of life and how I grew up with the telephone and the dial and all of that. And then coming into real estate later in life, having to learn how to connect with people way younger than me, and coming to realize that I can't talk to them on the phone. I have to text them. So I had to get my own abilities up to speed. And really with my kids, I was like, don't call me and talk to me anymore. We have to text everything, because I have to learn how to do this, and I have to learn what the language is and all of that. So yeah, the communication aspect is.
Logan shared a quote in the chat. He said, the ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands in times of challenge and controversy. It's an MLK. I think thanks, Rick. I think that's great. Like, we've been in times of comfort and convenience for a couple of years. And so for everybody that showed up, participated, I really appreciate it. And if you have any other questions or ahas, you're welcome to share. If you have any feedback, all ears.
I have one from the very beginning. It says, what do you want your business to achieve? When do you ever think about that? Like, I know a lot of people don't even think about, like, we're just in real estate. We're here to sell real estate. But like, what actually are you doing? That's interesting. It's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm all over.
That's a
I
great
think that
question.
changes over time.
It
at
can,
different stages in your life, you know, sometimes it's just about the income. Sometimes it's just, you know,
That's
about
where,
other things.
and I paired that, and I have the 7 circles circled right next to that question, because it depends on
Right.
what level in your life you're at.
Right.
Yeah.
What circle you're focused on.
Gary talks about that, right? There's different balls and you have some that are rubber and some that are glass. And in different seasons of life, you might need to juggle the bouncy ball and let it fall and then recatch it. But the glass balls, you have to know what they are and you have to know what are absolutely non-negotiable. Like for me, I mean, I don't think anybody would be surprised to know, like, I am absolutely non-negotiable about making sure that I create a positive impact for my daughter. Like, it is like 100% guides everything that I do. So, yeah. And when you're extremely convicted, all the other decisions are easy. I mean, you got, like, I was transparently talking about my transition over to Integrity First. That's a massive life decision. I left being a max coach to do that, right? Which I love to do. I like to create positive impacts, right? So if I was going to make a massive career change, it had to be in alignment with who I was and where I wanted to go. Can I still create massive positive impact at a company that employs 50 people? Yeah. Can I create a life that's bigger for my family than ever felt possible? Yeah. Okay, cool. It's still in alignment. It helps become the North Pole or South Pole of the journey.
Doesn't mean it's easy.
No. Leaving max coaching was harder than leaving production. So
Do you just have your real estate license or you have your broker's license too?
I just have an agent's license, real estate license. I actually let my Maryland one lag because I'm basically retired.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Looking good?
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Always wonderful.
Thanks, everybody online. Appreciate it. We got some good chat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Thanks, Joe. Awesome job.
I need to try it.
Try to do.
Household, HOU, like house with an L, HOUSE. There's also, like, if you're really looking to go deep down the financial rabbit hole, there's like think and Grow Rich, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Those are both like good financial books. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a really easy read.
Okay, yeah, that looks like that one has like 100 or 105 pages.
Yeah.
And I like that because the bold print's a little bigger too. I hate when they're so tiny.
Yeah.
I get to it, I'm like, no, but like the one thing, I read that one like probably like 2 days, and that was a good one. That was my home with Matt, with Rick, if he's still on.
He just got
Oh,
off, yeah.
Yeah.
And what was the other one?
Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. Those are good books. Think and Grow Rich is probably like on the more advanced side. What I liked about Psychology of Money was that it felt very accessible, and it was the best financial book I've read since Rich Dad Poor Dad, which isn't like it's not like an earth shattering book. It's just like, oh, these are.
There's a mindset for
Yeah.
And then I have a question for you, Bill.
Yeah.
What was your background by chance for like family wise? Did you come from family real estate business or you first generation or how that?
No, I'm
Hey, there's a modification on my desk because we got a 6-month extension on this loan. So you can get signed.
I said on your desk. Okay. I'll hit it.
You good? Did you get anything out of that?
Yes.
That's good.
A
lot of times people.
Okay, instructed.
He was all right. He was good. He cracked a couple jokes.
No.
Bad jokes.
Bad jokes,
Yeah. Awkward
I had
ones.
awesome meetings.
Yes, he did.
Dumb and Dumber?
Office, though.
I did see that as I was walking by. I thought it was you on a.
No, whatever. No, my dad was a banker, but I didn't really have like any specific. I have a degree in meteorology,
Is that space stuff?
weather,
Whether, yeah.
so.
So when you start taking this serious, what, you said 23, right?
Yeah, I was like 23. He was like 20. I think he was 21 when we started to work together. And we started at it was at that time, it was CR Property Group, was what it was called. We started there and, I would say I took it seriously about 2 years in, 3 years in. I took for granted what the experience was that I was getting over there. And yeah, I had a lot going on in my life at that point. I wasn't married. I was like in a rock band. I was just doing all sorts of fun stuff.
Just having a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the reason when I also want to say about the shifting, like honestly, me battling with all these other fucking agents was tough. Like for me, it wasn't easy. Like all these other people say, oh, like, yeah, it was 5 days, 3 days. I'm like, I didn't have that shit. I was battling and I just started. I came in where every these motherfuckers were banging out deals after deals. I don't know. My mindset was just like, do it right, get in, get out, show a really strong offer. And I don't give a shit who's against me. Just go in, go in. And I was mostly 95% with buyer agent. That's what I did for right now, only like 8 months, 7 months or whatever. And it's kind of starting, like my thing is like, never read the book, but I'm just like, everyone's talking about prices are going down. But it was just like, my thing was like, fuck, I know what's right and what's wrong. I'm not going to put in a full offer and not ask for sellers. That's what I did literally a month ago. I said, fuck this, I'm going to go for 3%. If it happens, it happens. Buy me a shot later. Just as a joke. We got it. And I just said in my head, like, oh, we don't get this shit. We're not gonna get 3%. We're just gonna buy it.
Hold on. Yep.
And now I'm starting to implement basically everything what you're saying right now. Like it's slowly coming down, but not whereas people think
So
crash wise.
I'm gonna challenge you that. Like for you, and you can decide what your business is.
And that's my niche. You see my business. It's mostly all Hispanic families.
Yeah, so here's where. Think big, don't think niche, think what's the niche helps me master something. It's like mastery of this niche, but like what's the biggest that could be? Because every time